We got into this to solve a problem. Currently, right now, women receive 2.8% of venture funds. Women of color are less than 1%, and African American women, we are at 0.00006% of recipients of venture funds. And it's so wild because right now, Black women are the most founding entrepreneurial demographic there is in this country. So right now, we're the most founded, but the least funded. So we see that there's clearly a funding issue that's happening. So we got into the space actually to solve a problem. I wasn't aware fully to the extent of how deep this problem was, but I knew that when at 21 from raising capital that I made that promise to myself that one day I'd be the business investor that I was looking to have for myself.
All right, well, welcome back. And Miss Simone, they're talking about some funding challenges that I'm probably not in a good position to talk about. I understand some of the statistics and some of the details about the lack of funding for women of color, women overall, but the women's perspective, I'm going to need a little bit of help with that. So I'm going to call in to get another episode of Building Her. She's the boss. So this is the Black Female CEO Initiative, and I want to bring in my good friend Keisha Nicole, who can help give me the female perspective here.
Guys, me.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad it's a beautiful Tuesday, and got a productive day going. It's been a good week so far. Last week was good. How about you? I know there's you've been doing a little bit of moving around, some life issues, things. It's always something.
Yeah, I'm in a good place today, and it's people have their days. Every day's not going to be a great day, just like when you own a business. Every day's not going to be a great day, But honor when you are having those good days, and I'm having a good day.
Good. Well, I don't know if you noticed or not. You got a lot of people thinking about you.
Thank you.
Whether they tell you or not, they're thinking about you, and you're on their mind. And
thank you.
They tend to send you positive vibes. I hope you know that. Yeah. So today we are going to be talking funding. And she said, basically, women are, essentially finding themselves as entrepreneurs, but finding themselves unfunded or underfunded. And so part of building her and building more Black CEOs, female CEOs, is making sure that women have the funding that they need to get their businesses off the ground, which is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I figured, well, let's bring somebody on that can talk to us a little bit about how to, I guess, raise awareness of the fact that you don't really have to have this real and like solely just a funding plan or funding strategy. You can have a funding strategy and an investment strategy or retirement strategy, and you can sort of blend those.
Mm-hmm.
May require a little bit of patience, but all things require patience, right? Anything worth having. So I figured we'll bring somebody on to talk to us a little bit about that. And he's a Houstonian, I think, in many respects, but we'll let him tell his story. So I'm going to bring on Phillip Washington because, you're exciting, I'm exciting, but this guy's the star of the show today. So let's bring on Phillip Washington. There he is.
How
What's
y'all
up?
doing?
What's up, man?
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. So, Keisha, Nicole, and I were just talking about, I guess some of your star power. I don't know if people understand, but you've been in this business what 14 years now?
Yep, 14 years. It went by like that.
Stonehill Wealth Management, and you represent and work. You advise people on wealth, investing strategy, that kind of thing. Advisory. Talk a little bit about that. Kind of what brought you into that.
Yeah. So the short version is I always liked business, right? I was selling stuff door to door in high school. Went to was blessed to meet somebody in high school who was living the lifestyle that I wanted, that I'd never even, I never envisioned, because I grew up on one side of the railroad tracks and my high school was on the other side of the railroad tracks. But it was all about, I was always a relatively smart kid, but what do they call that? Perspective, or
Yeah.
what exposure, right? Exposure is big. And so I say, hey, look, I just, I got to understand business and investing, because he's watching CNBC. So that was like, okay, when I go to college, I'm gonna learn about money. So got a finance degree, and then learned, hey, I can build a business, being in money. So I sold for a company for a while, and then I met this one dude. He was kind of cocky, very sure of himself, but a really good dude. Like, and then he said, hey, when are you going to run your own business? And
Yeah.
I was like, I do run my own business. Like, they don't pay me a salary. I make my own money based off the commissions. I say I pay their salary. This is my assistant. I pay the office. And they're like, yeah, but you don't really control the money, right? They control the money and what they pay you. And so that forced me to think hard about my life and it led to me starting my own business. And that person, of course, was you. And
I was
so
going to say everybody needs somebody a little cocky in their life.
I had no idea he was going to say it was you.
Yeah, no, but it was much appreciated. It's one of the things where you need people in your life to challenge you. Like I got a homie. I told him he was fat 6 months ago. Right now he is back to the same size that he was in college, and loving his life on Instagram. So you need that, right? Some people take offense to it, but real people, embrace the challenge.
Well, hell, and especially when people know it's coming from a place where it's coming from love. Like I know people that are in my life for good purposes of good. Like there are plus signs in my life, and I know when the people in my life are minus signs. And if I get somebody that's a minus sign trying to give me advice, I'm just
right.
Peace out. I don't have time for that. But if it's somebody that's a plus sign, I'm gonna listen. And it sounds like this person, whoever you were talking to, was somebody that was like they know where you're coming from, but I think one of the things, the point you made is that there was a place that you wanted to be. You saw where you wanted to be. Keisha, you've probably got some people like that, like friends. I know you have a lot of friends that are in business. I mean, do they talk much about, say, lack of funding or not having the resources to get themselves off the ground or really live out their vision?
I think a lot of people have this vision, or they have this dream of what they want. They can tell you exactly what they want, how to get it, but the only thing that's missing is the funding part, especially for Black women in business. They don't have the resources. They haven't been exposed to the resources. So I think this is good, and this is some information that I know that they can use as well.
Yeah, and sometimes I think we always have this tendency. Like I sometimes question, like, do you really? And again, this is coming from love, right? So it's kind of like, one time I bought a duplex, and before I bought the duplex, everybody was telling me, you don't want to buy a duplex. I'm like, why not? And they're like, well, because you don't want to be cleaning out toilets and doing pest control and having to fix leaks in the roof. And I was like, yeah, that's part of being an investor.
Yeah.
It's dealing with the headache. Then that's why you end up making more money, because you dealt with the headache.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same thing applies to funding. Is some people try to talk you out of it or say, well, you need more. You're not quite ready to start. Wait till you got more money. Wait till you got more safety net, as they say. And so, Phillip, I felt like, the discussion you and I had, you were a little bit more like, well, it depends, because at a certain point in time, risk is something you might cast to the side in order to get a reward. And so talk a little bit about that, man, like the risk versus reward approach to this and your philosophy, some of, what you think about how people should invest depending on their age or go right into business depending on their age. What's your perspective?
Yeah, and I think I'll start with it. It all defines is what you think of risk as, right? And so I think risk to me, and it's the same to a lot of people I talk to. Risk to me is like living a life that you don't love. I mean, ultimately, when you think about it, it's compromising because we only get one life, right? I know a lot of people who are going through life and they're living a life they don't love because of fear.
Yeah.
Right. And there's all kind of risks that play out because if you don't love it, you won't be at your best. Right. And you may think you're safe today, but one day you'll be 55 at the top of the pay scale. Right. And can be replaced by a 25-year-old who's cheaper. Right. And more hungry. Right. So then you go from being safe to 55. Right, with in no chance of being financially successful ever, right? Like for the rest of your life, and that's like not. I'm making this number up, but it's pretty close. That's like 90% of the people out there.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen, and so once you have that context, then you say, okay, the safest thing for me to do is figure out what I want and how to be happy, right? Because again, safety is an illusion. The risk is not being happy. I think it's safe to be happy, right? And so once you have that, then it's okay. There's math to it, right? So I'm always like, if you know what you want, and then you can quantify it financially, right? Meaning, like money is nothing. Money is a tool, but the tool helps you live the life you want to live.
Yeah.
Some call it retirement. Some call it financial independence, but there's no right or wrong answer. It's like, it's whatever it means, whatever it means to you. And so that's where we start. And so then once you can paint that picture, it's going to say, okay, now here's how we lay out money to get where we want to go. I'll give you an example. And this is another, we talked before, Justin, about my philosophy, but you may or may not know, like around that time when we had the conversation about Stonehill, or about going out on my own, we were talking about like, I have been trained in the system, retirement. And then you were like, ADP, I don't really care about retirement. And I was like, what does this guy talk? Like, why is Justin being so difficult? Right. But what you said is what I started adopting because I liked it. You were like, I'm going to always do something. Like, I like what I do. I just want to be financially independent. And so locking up money in a retirement plan until I'm 59 and a half is not super exciting for me. I don't know if you said exactly like that, but that's what I got.
I haven't changed. I mean, I still have the same, but it's funny because, one would think that, so I could have taken that approach and I could have like slow cooked it. And I'm sure like, Keisha, depending on sort of like who you watched, people talked about 401k plans and people talked about drips and all kinds of these investment strategies and things. And I came in that world where, your employer would invest like linked up. They'd walk step in step with you for a little while, or they'd match you up to a certain point. And I remember doing the math on that going, like for instance, do you have a number, Keisha? Like what's your number? Like if you had this amount of money or this amount of money coming in every month, maybe not like a total net worth picture, but this amount of money coming in every month, at which point would you stop being hungry? Is there a number for that?
I don't let you stop being hungry though.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't stop. I don't even, there's not a cap on that.
That's it. And so I was kind of like, well, if you can reach the number, whatever the number is, if I can reach it, then it isn't high enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up saying to myself, like, well, then, so what's the number? Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I can reach that. Well, then I need to go higher. Well, I can reach it. So every time I look back at the 401k plan with the company, it was a number I could reach. And I was like, well, this is not going to provide me with any type of real challenge. And so going out on my own and then saying, okay, what can I really do by myself? or with a few partners or whatever it is, different businesses. And that number exceeded what I could do working for somebody else. And I think that's probably the genesis of the
Mhm.
conversation you and I had, Philip. And it's like me with marriage. If I come to somebody, they tell me, I'm about to get divorced, I don't immediately go, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." Sometimes, honestly, I say, I talk to them about the situation. I go, "Congratulations," because I don't think God put us on this earth to be unhappy. And if you're going to be unhappy, why be married? And the same thing happens with finances. It's kind of like I'm just like, well, if 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 you have this fear of taking the risk and you take the risk and you still have the fear, congratulations, because that's part of what living is all about. So I really related to what Philip was saying with that. And so if you were gonna give, let's say let's just take like 30 something, Philip, what would you say would be sort of they wanna start a business, it costs $10,000, but they've got, say $3,000 saved up, and they maybe they make $500 a month more than what their bills are, and but they're out there saying, "I need funding, I need funding." I mean, walk me through kind of that process with somebody.
Yeah, no, and that's the simple one. That's hey, listen, if you really want to start a business, stop saving anywhere else in anywhere else you're saving money or putting money, like stop and go put it in an account. Like if you want, if it makes you excited, title the account, whatever the name is of your business funding, and then put
Mhm.
all your money into that account, right? And then cut expenses and then drive Uber, right? Do everything because um, once you have the goal, that's the hardest part. Like now you got it, and now you can sacrifice and do whatever's required to put money in account and fund yourself. Because if you do want to ask somebody for money, right? In my opinion, uh, if you want to go into business, that means you think you can be successful in it. And if you think you can be successful in it, and you give somebody a piece of that, right? You want to think. I would say you want to think really hard about giving somebody a piece of your future earnings, especially if you think you're going to be successful. But again, you wouldn't be going to business if you didn't think you're going to be successful, because that's expensive. When you can just, especially on 10 grand, right? And you got $500 a month free, like just save that money, right? And then go Uber, and you can be in business for yourself like in less than 12 months, easy, in that
Yeah.
scenario.
And it sounds to me, and Keisha, I want your thoughts, but it sounds to me like what Philip is saying is that, if you read between the lines, which trained attorneys, and very, very smart corporate women like yourself see right through some of that and know that there's a psychological aspect to what he's saying along with a financial aspect to what he's saying. Because he's saying psychologically, you got to take that jump and be fully committed. Financially,
Yep.
you get the reward down the road. And so if you believe that, do you have friends that you feel like psychologically aren't really into it, or are all of them psychologically have they made that leap?
Yeah,
No,
it's
No, I'm sorry,
yeah,
DP.
yeah,
I want to hear her story because I
yeah,
want to
yeah,
see
go ahead,
this
go ahead.
journey.
no, they all haven't made that leap.
They
No,
haven't.
and I think I think sometimes people rather have security than have that security blanket than stepping out and knowing that later down the line it's going to pay off. And I think
Yeah.
that's why a lot of people don't move on, really getting into their business. It's like they're halfway in, halfway out with their business.
And so, like for these ladies, like if you just imagine one or two of them, if y'all went to brunch and they're sitting there talking about their business or what they would like to do or how they're trying to get something off the ground or whatever, do you tell them that, or do you just say, yeah, nod your head or whatever in agreement, or do you just say, look,
No, so I'm the person that's going to take the leap, because that's kind of what I've done my entire career. So if you want the person that's going to give you the whole security blanket type of talk and be responsible right now, I'm the person that's planning for the future and what's going to be best for the future.
yeah,
And I don't like being comfortable, and I don't like that security blanket because I know later down the line I'm working now for what I can get later down the line. So don't
uh,
come to me for that because I'm not that. I'm not
yeah,
that friend.
yeah. And you got to overcome that too, right, Philip? I mean, as you're talking to some of these folks, I mean, back to
Y-
what you said earlier, I mean, how do you overcome that?
you know what? I just this is what I've learned, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I think I think everybody gets what they want, and I don't think you can change anybody's mind, right? So at this stage, it's more like you got to be there. You know what I'm saying? And I think we all know when somebody is there and when they're not there. So if you're not there, and I've spent lots of money on sales course and persuasion courses, and I've tried it. I've just got to the point to where I'm like, I used to can get somebody there in that moment, right? I got good enough to where I can get them there in that moment, and then 2 days later, when I was not in front of them, like they were no longer there, and then they wouldn't follow. So then I was like, man, this is a waste of time. Like you got to get there, right? That's between you and your maker. You know what I'm saying? You getting there, but then once you're there, you know what I'm saying? Then we can help. So I don't try to convince anybody anymore. My whole first meeting with somebody is figuring out if they're there, right? It used to be, I need to sell you on why you need to come with me. Now it's like, are they there yet? Because if they're not there yet, this is a waste of both of our time.
That's good.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. And it reminds me of, I like to say that people, sometimes when you set off on a journey, and it's a journey of, say, getting, sometimes it's not about what you get, it's about what you become on the way. And so the people that have been through that sort of imperfect journey a few times tend to really be a lot more secure about who they are, because that imperfect journey or incomplete journey or unrewarding journey tends to show them that really it wasn't that bad. I fell, I got up, I fell, I got up, but who I became along was something more involved, a lot better and a lot more capable. So I like to hear people that actually have some flaws or have some type of failings in their past, because I feel like they're a little bit more evolved. Now, you said something earlier, and I'm curious because I want to get Keisha's perspective on it, but I want to hear your thoughts, DP, like the cost of money. Because people see, I think something like 80% of the businesses out there, startups in the United States, are self-funded. And that applies to women too. So when I heard Miss Simone talking at the beginning of this intro about how women are so underfunded, I also know that there's a lot of expectation out there that, the world is Shark Tank. And the world is not Shark Tank. Everybody's not going to fund your business. I had to self-fund. We never borrowed a dollar from anybody before I just got here, and still haven't in that respect. So talk about the difference between sort of, like self-funding versus, say, equity funding or debt funding, because I don't think people really understand that you're giving something away. You said that you're going to actually lose something in the process if you do get Shark Tanked, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where you start is you say, okay, if I self-fund, if I come up with the money myself for my business, right? And I'm just going to make up a number, and my profits in the future are $1 million, right? Whatever the future is over what time frame, don't worry about that. Just my profits in the future are $1 million. If you put up all the money, you get all the million, right? But if you decide to borrow money from the bank, right, or somebody else, right, they get a fixed amount of the million. So you agree in advance. You'll say, hey, if you give me this money, I give you 100,000 of the million. So now you get 900, they get $1 million, right? But if you give up equity, so let's say you say, okay, I can't get a loan, but I can give somebody ownership in my company.
That's it.
You're going to give up a bigger chunk of that million, right? Because the difference between like lending money is, let's say you agree in advance, you're going to pay them 100, right? And you do better than what expected, so maybe you do 2-3 million, right? You get everything above like the 100 you gave them. But if you give up equity, they get and they own 20% of your company. They own 20% of whatever that future number is, even if it's to $1 billion, right? And you give up,
and that's just crazy. And
a lot of that money, yeah.
Keisha, I mean, to what extent do you think your friends, the women, that they understand those principles?
Well, I know there are a few people that understand that, because I know some of them have funded themselves in their business. I do know someone who went out and had someone fund for them, but they didn't give them percentage.
Okay.
It was a dollar a price. So I think they do understand that, but not everybody does, and not everybody has the luxury of funding themselves as well. So you have to really think about, hey, if I do have someone fund me, do I want them to have a percentage, or do I just want to pay back this amount of money to them. But you made a great point, and I didn't look at it like that. Man, if you exceed what you thought you were going to exceed, you have to still give them that percentage instead of if it was just a dollar sign as like $100,000 to the company. So.
And Justin, can we talk about, because I think something was just said that I think is important. And I just want to get y'all's thoughts, and we can talk about it. But it's like some people don't have the luxury to fund themselves. Can you elaborate on what that means?
Well, they don't have the resource. Well, they don't have the money. Like I have friends who have worked for what they have, and they have money, and they can fund themselves, or they may be in a situation where they have a husband or boyfriend that can help fund their business, while others don't have that. They have to get different resources to help them start their business up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That,
I don't know in your eyes if that's a luxury, but in my eyes, it's like I would rather use my own money than use someone else's money and have to pay it back. If I had it.
No, I got you. What you think?
Yeah, I think if you ever feel backed in the corner, like you have to do something, that's not ever a good idea. I think you always want to have optionality, right? Because it puts you in a position of power. Meaning, I'm gonna use a real example. Let's say somebody wants to go into a capital-intensive business like a restaurant, which is a terrible business, but let's just say it's super capital-intensive. And they say, well, man, I gotta have money for that. I'm like, well, let's think it through. So obviously you think you have things people want to eat. So so since you don't have money for the restaurant, do you have money for a food truck? No. Okay. Let's go to the next step. Can you build a following online of people in your area that maybe you start giving away recipes and you show them how to cook, right? Then that parlays into maybe you do monthly dinner parties where you charge $100 a person, right? Because that's low cost, right? I mean, you could, you can even find sponsors, people to pay, you can get people who want to talk to couples in a high net worth area, like wealth managers who may want to pay, sponsor the meals, but you still charge for the experience, right? So so then you do that for a little while. You bank your money, you buy a truck, then you get a truck, you bank your money, and then you buy a restaurant, right? So there's always a way. You know what I mean? Like in every business, there's always a way. It's just understanding there's a way, being creative, and then being patient.
But they also have to believe. And I think, like earlier you said, are they there? If somebody's not there, well, then they're not going to. I think if you're not there, then you always have a tendency to maybe go glasses half empty. Yeah. Versus there, you have this tendency to go glasses half full.
Yeah.
And one of the big challenges I have is I speak the language of you can do it, optimism. Yeah. And what drives me crazy is talking to motherfucker. I said, this literally just like, no, I can't do it. And I'm like, then why are we wasting time talking? Because if you don't believe in you, then what am I supposed to do? Get some pom-poms and be a cheerleader and say, I believe in you, you can do it? Or look at these other stories that we can simply Google and see that other people similarly situated figured out a way to do it. So you must be able to do it too, because y'all are both warm-blooded Homo sapiens. They just don't see it. And so it's difficult for me to keep talking to people that constantly find a reason for why they can't, versus what you just said. It came out of your mouth so naturally, and it's coming out of your mouth, Keisha, like the language of I can. So that's one. Two is one of the things I heard in between, and tell me if I'm wrong, but your examples that you just gave, DP, all of those where they have a customer. And it seems to me like Shark Tank breaks down to two types. The people that I see are like, they either watch too much Shark Tank or not enough. And the people that are watching not enough tend to forget that every person that comes on Shark Tank already has a customer. And so if you have no customers, then all you really have is an idea. And you're saying, I'm trying to get funding for an idea. Well, an idea is just a chemical reaction going on up in here. There's really nothing out there in the world for somebody to put some funding behind. It's just your idea. And so I love the way you just laid out a strategy for actually getting some customers, because investors they want to know they can get their money back. And it's tough to get your money back if there's no money coming in. So I think that's sort of that is something like you should write a book about that. Like,
Yeah, because when you start breaking it down like that, I'm like, oh duh, oh duh, oh duh. You know what I mean? You can't just all the time shoot the stars all the way. Like you have to say, okay, it has to make sense on some sort of level. And if I can't get the restaurant right now, well, let me get a food truck. And if I can't get a food truck, let me do these dinner parties. Or like if has a clothing company, hey, if I can't open a storefront, let me go online. Let me sell through Instagram. There's levels to these things.
well, I remember looking at some of the people. Keisha, did you ever have anybody or see anybody that they would go buy clothes at like some of the pre-owned shops, and then they would style people with pre-owned clothing? I wore pre-owned suits.
Like what do you mean? Like pre-owned? Like what?
Yeah, like gently worn pre-owned suits. Like you could yes, man, you could go to some shops, all over the country, and you could find stuff that's like literally thousands of dollars
And
originally, been worn twice, and then
and
somebody just cast it aside.
a nice consignment, a really
Yeah,
really nice consignment.
yeah, yeah. So, what is like in terms of I want to kind of take you to rate of return, because I want to talk a little bit about that, Philip. If you were, and I know this is a tough one to answer, because I think financial advisors and people sort of in your position that are guiding people on building wealth don't ever want to be boxed in, and there's so many things that y'all can't control with market. But let's assume everything's humming normally, not pandemic related stuff. What type of, like, if you said, okay, here's a return you can get on your business, here's a return you can get on your investments. What's the investment return versus what's a business return? And when does somebody, naturally have that, I'm leaning towards just doing investing because I'm not going to get that return over here? Or which time do they go, I'm leaning over here? I mean, how do they know?
Yeah, so I'll break it into active and passive investing, right?
All right.
I think if you start a business or you're doing real estate investing on your own, right? Or you're actively finding businesses that you want to invest in personally, like not a stock market business, but a regular business. I would put that in the active bucket, right? Because
Mhm.
it's not just money; it's money plus effort, right?
Yeah.
And the effort is where the leverage comes from, not the money, because money is easy. Like money is plentiful.
Yeah.
And so then you got passive investing, which is just money. There's just one part. So the returns on just passive are, in my opinion, almost always going to be less than the money in the active scenario. So you should always say whatever the return is. If you say, let's say passive is 10% a year, right? That's what we'll use stock market over 50 years, which I don't think that's going to be the case over the next 50 years. It's a whole other conversation. But
Okay.
let's say it's 10%.
Bitcoin. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it was coming. But 10% of 10% a year, then I would say, okay, if you're going to go into business for yourself, you should easily be able to do a 20% a year, expectation, if you're going to do it. Because my opinion is, if you're going to business to just earn 10% a year, on your money, like you can do that in the stock market, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
the most successful businesses don't. Most successful, as a matter of fact, I've had to talk to a lot of people that are into stock picking now since, whatever, there's a craze. And I say, listen, I've seen a lot of people who are wealthy. Like none of them have gotten wealthy by investing in mutual funds or stocks over a long period of time. It's they own the business, right? Even people on the internet that are selling these stock market courses, I'm like, you don't realize they made their money selling you the course, not
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, not
Yeah.
investing in stocks, and so the people who have money, they're saying, hey, I want to diversify I got 99% of my net worth in this business. And so I just want to take pieces of it out and diversify it into a passive investment program. So then that way I don't have all my eggs in one basket, because I'm already rich right now.
Yeah.
Let me diversify this over time.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There's a few people that have a few $1 million from investing in the stock market over time, but that's not wealthy. That's like, they're well-to-do, but I'm talking about people who have money. Like none of them got it from
Yeah.
mutual funds over time.
Yeah. Now, Keisha, at which point did you the language, like the language of money? Because for me, it was not something that I was not around people that were speaking that language. And so I really didn't understand. Like I understood double your money. Somebody, oh, you doubled your money. Got it. Put in 100, get back
Mhm.
your 100 plus another 100. I understood that. But like at which point were you around and do you remember like friends and people starting to talk about it? Or did you grow up around that conversation?
I didn't grow up around that. First of all, I didn't grow up around even knowing that credit was important to you because they didn't talk about it in my household, right? So it was like for
Uh-huh.
me, trial and error. Um, just learning and getting my car repoed and stuff like that for the credit part, and then
Yeah.
had to myself. And then when I got into my career and the people that I started being around in the music business, because I learned that they're not just really making their money off the music business, they have so many different other streams of income coming in. That's helping them, so they don't get broke because the music business ain't gonna pay you for your entire life. Most of these jobs. So I learned from some of my friends that work in the business about money, but before then I didn't know anything, like zero at all. It was like figuring things out, trial and error, and just watching people. And it wasn't until I started asking questions, like, wait a minute, like I know, you can't get this from what you. And it was having to ask questions and learning that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and even then, there was, like, a big difference for me originally between people that were doing financial advising and people that were doing, like, life investing, which is
Mm,
what Philip is doing, and for me, it's just a different kinda language. It's kinda like the language of happiness, and it's a little bit more applicable to day because I can totally understand, like, I need let's say I need $500 a month for my home-based business, and
mm,
let's say that, I don't know what a pack of Newports costs, but let's say that I'm buying a pack or two, a case of Newports, a carton or whatever. I'm buying a little bit of liquor. I'm going out to the club. I'm we had a lady on here, a woman on the other day. She's talking about bundles of hair and what those cost, or what
Mm.
nails cost, or whatever, and how that stuff. And I'm just kind of, and I go, okay, real life, you just cut back on these areas, apply it to these areas, and then you can still invest in your company and at the same time still have fun, but you multiply the fun later. Am I hearing that right, Philip? That's kind of the approach, or what?
Absolutely, absolutely. Deferred gratification, right? Right.
Yeah.
Deferred gratification. It's like reverse. I was talking to my 10-year-old about this. I said, listen, Tate, because we were talking to him about budgeting his time, not spending too much time on video games, about moderation, and I
Yeah.
was like, you're gonna meet people that have no boundaries, and they're gonna look like they're having a lot more fun to
mm,
you in life today. I
mm.
said, but as you build good habits, right? The older you get, the people that peaked in high school, you know, um, they're not living a great life, right?
Yep.
And every year, and I'm defining this by living the life you want to live, not by money, not by marriage, not by kids, but living life
Yeah.
you want to live. Every year, me and my friends that are living life that we wanted to live because we put in years and years of hard work, like our life is getting better, and it feels like they're not even feels like I talk to them. Their life is getting tougher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is hard regardless. Matter of fact, you got the tattoos, Justin. Pain of
And
discipline or
yeah,
pain of regret. You know what I'm
that's
saying?
it.
That's
But
just
you
a real.
sacrificed early on for what you have now. And I think people aren't willing to do that. Parents aren't even having those type of conversations, one. And number two, a lot of people aren't exposed to that. So this is why these type of conversations are important, because 9 out of 10 times, anyone that's a young adult or, a teenager aren't being exposed to even these conversations. And then what happens when you try to open up a business? You don't know how to open up a business, and now you're behind, and now you're trying to play catch up. And, so this is why this is great.
Yeah, and Shay Lawson was on last week, and she said that she worked with another lawyer. That every time he got a paycheck, Keisha, he'd set the check out on the table, and he would get his kids around, and they'd look at the check, and they would put a list of their bills next to the check. And he
Mm,
said, they were old enough to understand basic arithmetic, plus and minus. So he would
mhm.
say, "Here's the bills, here's the check. Now tell me what bills we gotta pay and how we're gonna pay them and what we're gonna have left." And they would actually take them with them to go deposit the check in the bank.
Wow.
And that type of education is really not something that we're doing, which
Yep.
I guess, brings me to, Philip. I mean, obviously, you had somebody in your life they just sort of seems like they changed that direction. I'm not talking about the cocky guy, and which, by the way, you're a cocky guy too, because when you said somebody reached their peak in high school, like I think you told somebody that in college one time, and then you're like, you reached your peak in school, man. But so anyway, but it seems like you had that sort of that moment where you saw somebody and you were able to see some future for you in what they were doing. And
Go ahead.
no, go ahead. I just don't know where that connection is happening.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you say that because you start getting in your 30s, you start figuring out why do I do what I do, especially because my son is just like me, so I need to understand myself so I can navigate him. And my dad was like, "Nah, Philip, you were always competitive. Like if like you were driven by if somebody thought you couldn't do something, or if you wanted to do something and you felt that fear, then you would run towards it because you didn't want you didn't want to be bested by anybody or anything." And so you marry that with every time I got exposed to a higher height. So dating my high school girlfriend who lived on the nice side of railroad tracks where the Houston Rockets lived, right? And she would like dates. She would want to go to like pancake, not the Pancake Factory. She would want to go to the Cheesecake Factory, which to a 17-year-old was like, you know what I'm saying? That was like, that's like Bob's Top Steak and Chop House over here in Dallas or something. And I was like, I couldn't afford it. And she'd be like, don't worry about it. My daddy got it. And she'd like just hand her money. So I was like, what does her dad do? So I would go over there and he would have CNBC on. And I asked him like, what do those things mean, right? But that was exposure, right? And so then it led to becoming a finance major. And then and one of the, and for real, I mean, I keep going back to Justin, but like, Justin, you were kind of the next level up where I met Justin and he was, talking about businesses and we drive past place and Justin be like, hey, what kind of business would you put right here? And I'd be like, I don't know. Like, what are you talking about? We're going to go to this party. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, that was like, low exposure. Then watching him do what he did. And then when I got with Northwestern Mutual, like, the guy, the cool part about that environment, even though I, left the company was my mentors are like millionaires and they worked with millionaires. Right. And so it became like a second language. You know what I mean? Like, how you go to a new country that speaks a different language and you got to think about what you're going to say. And then at some point, which is what I hear, you like start thinking in that language. Right. Yeah. And so you don't have to think about it. And so over 8 years of being around those guys and working with clients who will do, it was like I don't know the moment, but I just start thinking in money terms, right? But it was like over long periods of times and different people who took me to the next step of my journey. And every time I'm challenged, right? Then I'm like, okay, now I go to the next level.
Basic stuff though, like Keisha, what I hear from a lot of people I talk to, and I'm curious, like if you hear from some of your female friends, is people will tell me, well, I'm just not good at math. Math is just not me. Like I was never good at math. And, I mean, and so they go, well, I can't learn about money. And I don't know. Do you hear that at all or what? Like,
no, I haven't heard that because I don't go that deep into with them about that stuff. But them not knowing math. I don't know about them. I will say that.
Whenever I try to, talk to somebody about, say, interest, or compound interest or rule of 72, which, I want to talk about that, just as something, because whenever I show somebody rule of 72, they go, what they have no idea, or compound interest, which is Buffett called it something, but compound interest is just amazing. Maybe it's somebody else even before Buffett, but I mean, Keisha, what, like when your friends are saying they want to get funding, do they know how much they need, like to the penny? Do you know?
I don't. Some of them, I don't think they know all the way down to the penny.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I guess part of me thinks a lot of that's not their fault, but I don't know where we would ever go to learn it, because I just heard Phillip go through, how he met this person and then this person was exposed to this and I didn't hear, well, I learned it all in school, and we're not learning it in school.
Why aren't you learning these things in school?
And I was a finance major, right?
You know what's crazy though? I did have one teacher who was really invested in the students, and his name was Mr. Church, and it was a history class, guys. But instead of teaching us history, he taught us stocks, and he made us pick stocks at the beginning of the school year, and we monitored the entire year. And honestly, we didn't put any money into it for real, but it was a teacher that was really invested in the students. No one else had ever done that, so I would have never heard that language anywhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In school, they teach us stuff that we're never going to use in our entire life.
Yeah, I ended up, in law school, we didn't do any math at all, and we have a business associations, which is essentially all the different types of business formation. So as LLCs, or partnerships, LLCs, joint ventures, all kinds of things, shareholder derivative lawsuits, all this kind of big stuff. And the professor during the final exam, he's handing out the final exam. And of course, during the final exam, everybody's like, just stressed out, trying to figure out, where they slept last night. They just know they were up studying somewhere all night. And he's handing the test out, these worried faces, and he goes, "Don't worry, guys. Don't worry. There's only 3 math problems on here." And the reason he said it was because nobody in law school wanted to do math.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems to me like people just avoid math. They don't necessarily want to deal with it, but it is the most honest thing you'll ever find. It's like if a guy cheated on you twice, he cheated on you 6 times. That's math. I'm kidding. So
You're right. You're right. I avoided numbers all of my life. Let's be real.
So, but I think what happened, and so what I had to do literally is I just had to start putting a dollar sign in front of it. Even if I was doing a measurement, like I'm measuring tile in the bathroom, I was like, "Oh, this is complicated." I'll just put a dollar sign in front of it, and all of a sudden it was a lot easier. And I say that sarcastically, but also, realistic. Like I literally did it because it changed the way I looked at it. Anyway, look.
Well, can I ask y'all a question though? Because I think Keisha doesn't think this is a good one. Do you? So they do have to ask math, and I'm trying to give you a better answer than what I gave you. If I had to say what was the one thing, I don't think it was a one thing. I think I go back to the books that I read, and if I had to pick one, Think and Grow Rich, right? Because I've read that every year probably of since I've read it, 16 years ago. And the people that you hang around, meaning, when I talk to my 10, what I'm focused on with my 10-year-old right now, like my wife is really hard on them on school, right? So I don't have to, like pay as much attention to that because, she's on it. What I'm on them is, hey son, like learn school, but that's not going to help you make money. I don't say that, but I'm like, I keep getting them to say, if you don't know how to do something, go to Google, go to YouTube, because in this world they have what we didn't have the world. Like if you can find the answer to anything you need to learn to figure it out. Like Bitcoin, here it is. For real, Bitcoin is literally changing the financial system. Like if you want to become wealthy, like learn about Bitcoin, period. But it's challenging because I didn't grow up on computer code. I wasn't a computer nerd, right? But I went down the rabbit hole and learned everything needed to learn about it. And I didn't need to go to Harvard. I didn't need to go take a course, right? I didn't have to spend money on some $2,500 course, right? I just put in the work. And I think the mindset, because the mindset was changed, right? I think that is the deal, right? It's the mindset,
Yeah.
Got to flip that first.
Yeah. And Keisha went. Now, one thing real quick, because I know Keisha, I know you got a roll here in a second. We want to wind this down, but as soon as he said the people you hang out with, your head nodded. What was you thinking?
Because there's some people I used to hang out with where I didn't learn anything, and then the people that I hang out with now, who I hang out with people I look up to. I don't hang out with people that I can't learn nothing from, that can't invest in me, that can't help me get to the next level. Everybody that I hang around is like 3-4 levels above me, unless we've been friends for a very long time. You know what I mean? Whether it's financially, whether it's because I'm really big on mental health and I'm really big on peace. Somebody that's helping me find more inner peace. I don't hang out with anybody that can't help me and elevate me to the next level and that can't pour into me. And also, I don't hang around anybody that I also can't pour into as well. Because I used to be that person that only poured into people and nobody was filling me up. And then I was like just dead. You know what I mean? And so now it's like an even exchange. But I really hang out with people that I aspire to be like. That's like 3 times better than who I am. So
that's outstanding.
Yeah, that's the most important thing for me. I was talking about that this morning with J-Mac on the radio. That actually was our morning motivation about the people that you meet around.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to step my game up. I'm gonna step my game because I need to go 3 times.
3.
So I'm gonna
me.
get that financial. Like, let me see financials. Before I hang out with you, man, I need to know you got 3 times what I got.
You're already hanging out with Jay-Z, right? Don't you like spend the weekends with Jay-Z?
You're more advanced than me, right? So your 3 level is different than my 3 level up.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. You know, I'm a work in progress, but you know, I think one of the things I pulled from this and with this whole series being that, you know, we're going into Q&A, you know, on the next one or whatever, and we'll wrap this thing up after the next episode, but is that there's just a lack of information. A, B, we'll put this up. Watch. There ain't gonna be a ton of people watching this. There'll be a ton of people talking about what they want to do, but ain't gonna be a ton of people watching this. Because at the end of the day, it's a lot like the guy who says, I'm gonna put a conference on and tell everybody how to do what I do and make the money that I make and charge them to teach them because he knows he could do that and people will pay to learn it.
We'll pay.
And will never go do what he does.
Yep.
And then we'll show up again next year.
Yep.
I came so close last year. Maybe this year I'll do it again.
Every single time.
But that's the formula. It's like the self-help section in the bookstore. It's like how to succeed and how to pick yourself up off your ass when you don't.
Yeah.
And then repeat. And it's just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And so, but the one thing that I've learned from this, my takeaway from the Building Her campaign and the initiative is that there is a lack of this type of education out there. And I don't know what the platform is going to be to deliver it, you know, whether it's more of these types of conversations, but like what I would really like to do is have Phillip walk 3 aspiring business owners through their math at some point in time for us to actually get their worksheet and him to walk them through their math and actually show them, okay, here's your future investment. Here's your investment in yourself right now. And here's your approach to that, you know, logically. And you know, and I think that might be helpful for somebody because to get them to start thinking about what their why is. And then also we just need something more regular where we're having these types of conversations and we got to figure out what that is. So I'm glad we didn't go too deep today. I wasn't sure because I was going to go investment calculators and rule of 72 and all that kind of stuff, cost of capital and capital management and all that stuff. But really, I think the foundation has got to be laid first for so many people. It's like we really got to.
Yeah, the basics have to be. They have to get to the basics first. And a lot of people, you know, when I'm even speaking to you guys, I realize a lot of people aren't past the basics.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not. I mean, it's not. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody.
Yeah.
But it is. It is for sure. You know, you got to take that initiative. Keisha, Nicole, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you. Thank you for your time as always. And I'm always glad to have you on because I like your input. You know, it's always very real world and candid, transparent. So that's what we need.
Thank you for having me.
And DP, Phillip Washington, good to see you. We'll now that we're recording, so I'm going to wind down this thing, but we're going to just tune off. Keisha, you can. There we go. And take care now. Thank you. And then we'll close this thing off right now. So, and then we'll go into the studio because David Lee will wrap this thing up. I'm gonna call you right after this, though, man.
All right, cool.
DL, you taking us out of this, or